All right. Welcome everybody back to Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. My name is Steve Weinberger. I'm the CEO of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, and we are joined today for a continuation of our Conversation With series with our good friend Brandon Robertson and vocalist, drummer, producer Jamison Ross. Jamison, what's up, man?
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing, man? It feels good to be here.
Oh, well, it feels great to have you with us. I'm going to keep this pinned on you for a second while I talk a little bit about these sessions. Everyone will notice that they're muted for the courtesy of the session, but if you have questions, please use the chat feature or the raise your hand feature, and we'll get those questions to Jamison and to Brandon. And I really want to give a big shout out and thank you to the sponsors of this particular initiative, Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners and Duke Energy for helping to sponsor what we call the studio, which is accessible at clearwaterjazz.com. After these live sessions, they all get archived in the studio. There is a What I Love About series, a Conversation With series, general topics, and then instrument-specific topics that are more instructional. All kinds of great stuff, wonderful educators and musicians building this treasure. And then if listening is your thing rather than watching, you can check out the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast wherever you stream. Just type in those words and you'll get all kinds of these sessions and other programs we do, like the Stop Time series with Frank Williams. Great to listen to. So check all that out. I think we're up to close to 5,000 total plays in just the few months that we've been doing these things. So we know how valuable they've been to band directors and students and really players of all ages and abilities. So thanks for following along. Thank you, Jamison, for being a part of this today. And I'm going to pin Brandon here for a second and make him blush a little bit. Brandon has been such a special part of helping to grow and build this resource over the last year. And Brandon, I was just looking back at some of the past sessions that we have done together, and we've been kind of busy, man.
Yeah, I was like, we've done a lot.
So, you know, if you look in the studio, you're going to find sessions from Brandon like Where Do I Begin as a Professional Musician? Breathe, relax, focus, simple tools during performance, raising the bar, preparing for performance, how to develop melodic bass lines, tempos and styles, how to develop endurance during a performance, thinking like a horn player from a bass perspective, bass, how to capture a big sound, playing duo performances, man, and it goes on and on. Accompanying a vocalist, constructing bass lines, and we've got some more great ones coming up because I know we were just talking about it. So let me give Brandon a little brief intro. Brandon's going to introduce Jamison more formally. Brandon Robertson is an Emmy-nominated music director, professional upright electric bassist, composer, and music educator, originally from where?
Tampa Bay!
He completed his Bachelor of Arts in Music from Florida State University in 2009 and a Master of Music and Jazz Studies in the spring of 2016. Currently, Brandon is the Director of Jazz Studies and Director of the FGCU basketball band at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida. In 2018, he was nominated for an Emmy Award for Best Documentary for Educational Collegiate Programs featuring the FGCU Jazz Ensemble. Prominent band leader, multiple national tours, headlining at some of the top jazz venues in the country, played with all kinds of wonderful people too, and ensembles. The world-famous Count Basie Orchestra led by director Scotty Barnhart, who, by the way, gave us some really great virtual sessions last year. Vocalist Carmen Bradford, Jason Marsalis, Marcus Roberts, Marty Morell, Wycliffe Gordon. The list goes on. And check out Brandon's first debut album entitled Based, B-A-S-S' on a True Story, what was released in the fall of 2019. Did really well on the charts, and it's a great album, so please check that out. And Brandon's also been a part of a music series we started last year in 2020, leading up to the festival, called the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Presents Wanderlust Music Series. Outside, socially distanced, small-scale events all over the place, rooftops and urban squares and beaches. And Brandon did a great rooftop show with a trio towards the end of last year, and he's scheduled in August to join us with his trio featuring the great Dan Miller. I think that's August 19th. So, man, we're going to have fun with Brandon this year. So, guys, thank you for being part of this conversation with series. I'm going to unpin Brandon now so we go back and forth between Brandon and Jamison. The stage is all yours.
Okay, so first of all, as usual, you did make me blush, and because I'm a little chocolate in the face, it's hard to see, so please don't make me do that no more, Steve. Come on, man, it hurts my cheeks. It hurts my cheeks. But man, thank you for that introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm glad to see a whole bunch of familiar faces, and pretty much everybody on here I know, so I'm glad to see you all. And for today's conversation, I get to join my brother from another mother. I've known this guy for a very long time. We've gone way back to our college days when we was learning how to swing. We was learning the fofo. We was checking out records. We spent a lot of time in that excruciating basement. I probably could have died in that basement from how all the asbestos and mold was in, but we ain't gonna talk about that. But I have to give my man a proper introduction. So for those that don't know, Mr. Jamison Ross is a special human being, okay? And when the first time I met him, I already knew. I was like, okay, he's different. The way he plays, the way he carried himself, just the way that he interacted with everyone when we was at Florida State, everyone just knew. And so when he completed his degree there, and he took his talents over to New Orleans, and he finished his master's there at UNO, and he got to immerse himself into the scene, and he ended up developing something. He developed his sound, and when he won the Monk competition, there it was. The rest was history, and this man has not looked back. And when I say that he's not only been an inspiration for myself, I can also speak on behalf of our peers that know him. He's been an inspiration for them. He's inspired so many young musicians who have tried to come up in this new generation wave. He's a two-time nominee, producer, vocalist, drummer, composer, husband, father, brother. Man, this dude, like I told you at the very beginning, he's a special human being, and I love him, man. So I want to thank him for taking the time to speak with us this morning. Jamison, what's up, man? How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing good. I'm a little uncomfortable. Sat here, like, kind of, yeah, bro. A little shy at this moment, but I can't complain. I'm always well. It's a Tuesday in New Orleans, Louisiana, and we're making it happen, bro. I appreciate it. Thank you for those kind words, man. Glad to be here.
Man, first off, I see Amina that's in the screen too, and I actually hit her up a few days ago, and I was like, it is really, really cold in New Orleans right now. Y'all just going through it.
Yeah, I went to Baton Rouge for Valentine's Day with my wife. So to be honest with you, like, it was brutal, and I had to drive back to New Orleans. It's kind of painful, like, the weather. I just don't think it gets that cold in New Orleans, but it's a weird kind of space of weather. It's really hot,
right?
Being from Florida, it kind of gets cold, but not really. It's like,
right.
But New Orleans actually can be cold where you feel like you maybe put on a scarf, maybe a bubble jacket, to keep you warm.
Yeah, and it don't help too, because New Orleans is literally right by the water, so I mean that don't help at all.
Wet cold.
Man, listen, first of all, it's good to see you, man, because it's during this pandemic, as myself and you can attest to this too, we had a lot of downtime. We had a lot of time to chill. You and I both family men, so we got a lot of time to chill with our families, you know what I'm saying, get to catch up with what was going on. And sometimes we always just on the go, so we don't really we kind of bypass some things. And so what I want to ask is, man, what has it been like for you, man, like just this past year? I mean, I know you still been busy. Like I've been keeping up with you, so I know you've been busy, but what's it been for you?
You know, I'll be honest. The first 6 months of the pandemic, it was all about just kind of staying still, you know, and kind of like taking it one day at a time. I mean, you got to think when you get the entire existence of your career, that momentum, the artistic practice of playing music on a regular basis, when that gets taken, you really do. It's not that you have to reassess. You almost have to like, you know, kind of follow where that space is. You know, I hate the reassess word, because reassess means that something is wrong sometimes, like change. No, it's not about changing. I just think you have to really, you know, check where the value is and understand, oh, you know what? Was the value really on stage? Was it in touring? Was it in the gig? Or was it in us creating? Like, was the value creating the art form, creating the music, creating the moment, creating whatever it is that we love to do? We're creatives, we're artists. And so for me, I think just understanding the value of what we had, and with the amount of music that we had the ability to play on all platforms. This is from the small gig on the rooftop, the elevator music gig, playing a bunch of standards, to you being in Madison Square Garden. All of these opportunities, they were a byproduct of us being able to create. So for me, it definitely, I took a pause. I had a family. I went to Tampa for a month because my wife's grandmother had passed, and I almost got stuck in Amsterdam because I was on a tour. And I was in Amsterdam we were supposed to be there for 2 weeks, 5 shows all across Rotterdam. And I had to fly home abruptly fly home when Trump had the travel ban. So we flew home, you know. That was like when things got really weird, because I flew home and then flew to Tampa with nothing but like a book. I didn't even have a drumsticks and drum pad with me.
Oh man. Man.
I was like literally reading with family, being dad, being son-in-law, was with my in-laws. I was just family, man. Yeah, at that moment I had to really just reassess. And so it was good for me though, because I really understood the value of what it meant to create, you know, and what it really means to create. It's like, yeah, the music is a gift. The instrument is a gift. Yes, for a lot of us, it's our purpose. It's what we're supposed to do with ourselves. But when you look at the real core beauty of what we had, it was a means by way which we create something. And so it set me up. When I got back home to New Orleans, man, I just started trying to figure it out just like everybody else. It wasn't rocket science. It was like, okay, we don't have any gigs, no shows, virtual shows. You know, I didn't even have that. A lot of musicians had the virtual thing happen at the beginning of the pandemic. But for me, I didn't even jump into that until later. I almost came home and just stayed. I homeschooled my daughter because she was out of school. That was a big change for me. That taught me a lot of patience and taught me about being diligent with doing something and like achieving a task, you know, and so now things are starting to flower back, and they're flowering back better than ever. And so I'm actually looking forward to what's to come now, because I understand the value of what was taken away from me.
Man, that's heavy, man. And I want to piggyback off of something with you real quick, because I went through that same experience. And as you saw, I had started the web show last year because I too like went at a pause, and then I was stuck quarantined with my kids for 75 days because they were homeschooled, or they couldn't go to daycare. Yeah. So I'm dad. I had my bass so I could practice, but man, I was playing the iReal for hours, and at that point I'm like, man, this is depressing. And one day I just said, you know what? I was talking to I don't know if you know Adam Klein. He's got the one that co-produced my record. Adam had me and him was on the phone, and he just said, man, you know, you should just have a conversation with some of your friends, you know, your musician friends. And that's what gave me that idea, the creative idea to start something. But you said something that hit home just now, is the value. And I've been saying, I played 4 gigs all last week, and my hashtag I won't take for granted anymore, because I did that. And I can honestly, truthfully say, when I was just working constantly. I was starting to get momentum. The album was out. I was starting like, yes, the festivals was coming, yes. And then boom, and that's what the pandemic taught me, was the value of, wow, it's more than just the music. Like you said, was it the stage? Was it the touring? So I'm glad you pointed that out, because I've had a lot of students who have struggled through the pandemic. They've been struggling like creatively. They've been struggling with their time management. They've struggled with just trying to figure out, like, how do I make it as a musician? So I wanted to ask you, like, when you graduated with your master's out of New Orleans and you became now a professional musician, and I tell my students all the time, when you graduate, once you leave school, you're not a student no more. You're still a student within music, but you're not a student per se as in the field. You're a colleague now. You're a musician. So Jamison, maybe touch on, like, what was that transition like for you when you, because I believe right around that time is when the Monks competition stuff was happening for you. And so that was a lot. That was a big leap to come straight out of school, and then you get, boom, that happened. So what was that transition like?
You know, it's funny because I like, people call it a transition, and I think that's a good word, but I like to see it a little differently. You know, Brandon,
Okay.
Tallahassee, I started touring with Carmen Lundy when I was 19 or 20.
Yeah, that's right, with the Betty Carter.
Yeah, I went to Betty Carter as a head, and when I went to Betty Carter, I started touring with Carmen while I was still in undergrad at Florida State. And I graduated, continued to tour while staying in Tallahassee, back and forth to New York. And I think something that's really important about the transition from being a student or learning to touring is that the opportunities you have, they end up growing. They grow. And they grow, and before you know it, before you blink your eyes, you're in a professional situation to where you're actually providing for yourself playing music. And so it doesn't really happen like it doesn't like just shift and take place. There's a mindset and a natural growth progression to your learning, and then the opportunity that matches what you've learned. It's like you pass the test, and then the opportunity presents itself. And if you keep passing those tests, more opportunities will present themselves. People talk about it all the time, and as far as a career and getting yourself out there, moving to New York, moving here, moving there. No, it's not even that difficult. If you have not taken the step to move to New York, that means that there's some opportunities that you still have to conquer around you. And because it's a mindset. Me moving to New Orleans was like, okay, it's time. It was almost like, okay, it's time to move to something. I need to actually grow as a musician, right? I need to develop. Amina is on here. Amina went back to Florida State to study and get her master's from, to me, a deep well of bass with Rodney Jordan. And to make that kind of decision to do that is an awareness of what you want to do and how you need to grow.
Right.
So the transition for me, the Monk competition was a big moment for me, because that's when a lot of what I call the world stage platform, started to even know who I was. A lot of the articles that were written about me, even at the competition, was as if I was the black sheep, like I wasn't supposed to win the competition, And so it just goes to show you, it's not always about your position. It's like, what are you doing in your lane to really keep yourself kind of in that forward motion? You feel me? It's like, that is where I think the transition word is tricky, because it's a natural progression. Like, nobody knew I was touring with Carmen Lundy and then the Monk competition, and then all of a sudden now you realize that I've been around these festivals and opportunities. It's just that nobody saw me that way. So there's a perception thing that happens when it comes to career, student. And what you have to realize is, and this is what I'm teaching at Loyola University right now in the School of Music Industry. I'm teaching a class called Sound and Practice.
That's what's up. Right.
I'm teaching a lot of the popular music students who are already thinking about their career. Mm-hmm. So they're already thinking as professionals. Mm-hmm. So when I teach them, I'm not teaching them like a student. I'm almost like, what do you want to learn? And what I'm going to do is help you refine your style with the ancestry and the history of the music. And I say all that to say, that's what happens to your career. Your career naturally falls into a progression based on the information you've learned and what your experiences are. If you're not playing a lot of jazz gigs, you can't expect to go play a gig with Christian McBride next week. Like, you can't think that's gonna happen. You know,
Right.
it's just that it doesn't work that way. I remember subbing with Christian McBride. You know how I sub? I subbed with Christian McBride, a friend of mine, Ulysses Owens, who was actually the drummer in the band at the time. He didn't even know. I don't think he even knew that Christian McBride had called me. Christian McBride didn't even make the connection that me and Ulysses were from the same city.
Oh wow.
So it just shows it's never always about. There's a natural progression that takes place based on what you are doing. So that's the focus. And I feel like for me, man, it just really naturally, I went to Betty Carter. When I went to Betty Carter, the things that I had accumulated musically and artistically, and my practice habits, my playing, my sound, my artistic approach, they made room for me in that space. And Carmen called me. I didn't even have a passport when she asked me to go to Europe. I went to Europe when I was 19 years old, and my first tour was in Kyiv, Ukraine. That was like Eastern Europe. What? 19 African-American dude in college in Tallahassee, Florida, taking a flight from Jacksonville. I used to drive to Jacksonville to catch flights to go play the gigs with Carmen because the flights were too expensive in Tallahassee. That's the kind of stuff that people don't talk about.
Right. Yeah.
But all of those steps, man, they added up. I moved to New Orleans, and all of that started. I went to New Orleans because they would allow me to keep touring while I was in college, And I got married too, and there's a lot of perspectives about me wanting to have a family that New York didn't add up with, just being honest. It's different for some people, but for me, I was like, no, I want to get in the car. I want to go to the grocery store. Like, I was kind of backyard,
Right. We from the Florida boys, man. Yeah.
So there's a perspective thing that happens there where you don't really take the normal route, and that's okay. People have to realize that we need us in different parts of the world, because when we all get to be 50 and we all got these nice situations where we're in leadership positions, I need to be like Brandon. Hey man, I need to come through this play and play this festival. You know what, Jay? Man, what you doing? I need to come through here and this. Like this is Nigel. Hey, Amina, where you at? You still teaching in Oklahoma? That is where the scene is, because that's what a lot of our teachers are doing. If you don't pay attention, that's what they're doing. They're calling friends. So this is where we have to change our perspective and understand the natural progression from being a real student of the music to actually having a organic career.
Man, that's powerful, man. And what's funny? I have two of my students on the call. Actually, three of my students on the call. One is my former student. She's in college now, USF. But I tell them everything you just said. I tell them that every single class. I always tell them, I say, guys, do you know some of my closest friends, or the guys and girls that I went to college with at FSU? And Jamison, you can attest to this. We was at Florida State during the golden era when, like, I tell them all the time, like, all my peers are successful. But what's beautiful about that, I'm proud of them that they've all created their own identity. And that's what's been missing in this generation. Everybody want to sound like somebody else. I think there was I saw this clip, Robert Glasper was talking about that. And he was like, everybody want to sound like, Charlie Parker, but Bird wanted to sound like Bird. He wasn't trying to sound like everybody else. And then I also tell them that your friends, the camaraderie that you built at school, those are the people you gonna call. So you know what I'm saying? Like I personally, when I called Will to come down here 2 years ago with Jason to do a master class, I just picked up the phone, called him up. Jason, what you doing, man? You gonna be in Florida? Yeah, come. He said, actually, I will, man. I'll come. And boom, and it was just like that. But I like that you said that even when you was in school, you were still thinking that. And that's what I teach. I've been teaching my students that, like, guys, y'all have to think this now. Do it now, because once you get out there, you can't correct that. It's like, what,
That's where your gigs come from. I mean, Barry Stevenson, Chris Pattershaw, Chris Pattershaw, Rick Lawler are three of my band members that my first two albums were recorded with these guys, right? Then I added Corey Irvin. All of these people, you know where I met them? In college. Like, literally, Brandon, you remember?
Yep, all of them in college.
Something, I called them first. Called them, and then we traveled the world for 4 or 5 years. Like, literally, like, toured. I didn't know that was going to happen, And so I think a lot of it too is just like not taking for granted your position that you are in now and really focusing on the lane, you know, like really that's like you got to focus on that. So for me, I mean, I also don't want to make it like this super ethereal kind of, no, it's the work. It's the work. Like all that thing in you that strips you of your pride, you have to do. So, and when you do it, you find like on the other side that there's like a loads of opportunity waiting for you musically, you know. And this pandemic is bringing that home even more for everybody. I mean, the curveball now for music, bro, it's not going to be the same. If you think it's going to be the same as it was before, oh no, it's going shit. It's already has, you know.
And what actually that was going, I'll end my last point in a little bit, but that was actually I was gonna transition into that point right there. What's your current take on like the virtual music scene? And I say virtual music scene because it's a digital scene now, and you know we dealing with licensing issues with these different streaming platforms that we can't live stream like we used to on Facebook or Instagram Live. They mute you, or they'll like, you know, crop your video, or they'll do something that's kind of like, man, you know. So how have you been able to adapt? Because you know what I like that you do, Jay? You do these clips, but it's very like cinematic. So you can't really like tell like, oh, like, because you talking but you playing. So it's like I can't mute you, and it's your music, but it could be, you know what I'm saying? So how have you found a way to adapt to this virtual world of playing online now?
You know what it is? Well, I'll tell you. Well, first off, just to kind of adapt to the virtual world, I'm gonna tell you one of the projects I did. This is just tell you how real it is. So I had two projects when I got back home to New Orleans. This is my way of being creative. I learned how to build sound baffles, sound treatment. So I ordered some on Corning OC 300, I think it was 700. I ordered about 20 panels. I put polyurethane all on the edges, and I wrapped them all in like burlap fabric. I turned my house into a factory for like 2 weeks. And the reason I did it is because I knew that where we were headed musically was going to be essential that people can record at a high level on their own. That's where we're headed. Like, you're going to have to record music at a high clip. Not that, and you're going to have to be able to create. That's the thing too. It's not more so record as create. And you don't want the recording technicality to be a hindrance to what you need to create. That was my first project. Took me a while. I read a lot of research, a lot of handy work, a lot of splinters. It was deep. And if you could see them, I don't know if you can see my room, but you can see the panel here. And I don't know if I can lift it up. You can see my crowd.
Yeah. Right there at the top.
Yeah, there's a whole, on top of me too, there's a whole cloud where I've hung the panels. Long story short, this took me a while to do. I had to get on ladders and the whole nine. But I can record in this room and you think it was recorded at like the highest level of a studio. Here's another second thing I did. I learned DAWs, Logic, Pro Tools, whatever your choice. I prefer Pro Tools because when you go to the studio, that's what they're using. So getting into Pro Tools for me was big. And so I literally took it day by day when I didn't have anything to do. I would literally open up Pro Tools and I would go step by step and learn the quick kick until I didn't want that to be a hindrance. I don't want to deal with that. That's something, these are things too, that this is modern understanding of how to utilize music technology, which to me, schools should be doing way more. I think they're doing it.
Agree.
But we got to be way ahead of that curve because technology, bro, it's gonna be how we make music.
Yeah.
If you look at the way Herbie Hancock plays Oasis and these big old computers on stage, that don't tell you nothing, bro. Herbie, he's freaking 77 years old, and he's playing with stuff that Stevie's playing a Harper G. Something's going to happen where we're going to have to shift, and it's going to become a translation of the technical perspective of music and the ancestral spiritual perspective, and we're going to have to match them. That's going to happen. See, that's thinking ahead, too. That's the creative being, right? The other thing is, too, in this virtual time, like performance-wise, learning how to perform in front of a camera is very different. from performing in front of an audience.
I agree with you on that. It's weird.
And the whole content era that we're in is really heavily driven. Like, I mean, bro, everybody's posting videos. It's intense. It's virtual shows, live shows. And so I don't think you have to feel anxiety about being a part of that community. I don't think you have to. People think you're supposed to, keep up the videos, find your lane. No. I actually do this. I disagree with that. What you need to do is wait until you have something truly authentic and identifiable by you alone to say. And when you have that, all of the rest of the technical perspective of how you want to do things, the videos, performances, it's going to come. That's one thing I've learned. I've never forced it, bro. I'm doing this right now. I had a tailspin where I'm working on a third record right now. And I just stopped writing maybe like a week ago, and I'm about 13, 14 tunes. And so we're going to record these tunes again. I recorded 5, and I'm going to record 9 or 10 more coming up this month. And I didn't hear no music coming in my head because there was so much information taking place. When it comes to everybody was learning through virtual. I'm looking at virtual school. I'm looking at virtual concerts. I'm scrolling. I got all these different virtual perspectives that are not real, tangible. Right. So what happens is, and this is real, man, what happens is I literally pulled away from it almost as if I would if I was traveling, like touring the world, like having that tangible experience. And then I hit a tailspin where I got 15 songs, just came fast, boom, 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 boom. And when I got those 15 songs, I got my perspective on the next 3 years of my career.
Wow.
So what people have to realize is it's all connected. And if you're missing one, then there's probably going to line up the other answers to your question. It's going to like literally, and it happens to me every time, bro. Every time I go through a dry spell, every time I feel a lack of creativity, all these different things that we try to like, it's supposed to happen. But when you overcome it, it answers a lot more questions than sometimes we're willing to admit. Sometimes we try to force those questions by and that's where the value comes in, when you got to realize like, why? What is this? What do you want? Do you want to be respected by your peers? Do you want to be celebrated as a great drummer? Or do you want to tour? Do you want to really make music? Like, which one is it? Yeah. Because when you really answer that question, bro, it really starts to solve itself. And then you start to say, you know what? Okay. It's like hard moments, man. And so for me, this pandemic does that to everybody. It pulls you together fast. When I realized I wanted to produce, and I realized that I had a gift of producing, for one, that I was already producing, but I realized that I could not bring anyone into my home studio and like edit their records myself. That told me that there was work to do. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like, when I realized like that, it's just simple. It's like, you know what? I need to know how to do this, because I don't need to actually, like, if I really want to do this, this is going to alleviate, a step in the process of me, I can show my worth with my actual, like, what I'm doing,
Right, exactly.
So these things happen with music, with your shedding, with what you're practicing. A lot of us studying jazz, man, we find practicing can be tedious sometimes. But I'm gonna tell you like this, for me, transcribing used to be very tedious. Like, it used to be a very tedious act. And Nigel's on here, man. Your dad, I still got those books. I still got books of transcriptions that I've collected for 3 years of like transcribing. It used to be very tedious, but something I learned about that? There's a certain kind of focus and discipline that those transcriptions taught you. And if you don't gain that, then you'll end up having the same issue in other areas of your career. And that is one of the heaviest things I realized. The that issue of focus and discipline, because they don't tell you that. Like, Leon never talked about focus and discipline. He never talked about it. He just said, yeah, man, transcribe this. And then you realize you spend 6 hours, 3 days a week sitting in front. And back then, we didn't have an amazing slowdown. We was doing
nothing.
We were slowing down over and over. And in fact, the State Library, the music library, had these record player machines with the CDs, and you can like play the song. But they had like the old school where you just rewind like a couple seconds and then stop. And I used to love those. You know why? Because you can like accurately rewind. So you didn't have to like, and it goes back too far. No, it was like B section, solo, and transcribing, comping, that kind of focus and attention. Man, those things are basic principles to really creating up under distress, creating in a pandemic. Those kind of like efforts, and a lot of times our generation, we don't have that. We don't have that focus. Not all of us, but we don't have that. We don't know what it is to sit down. I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, Jazz, cut the TV off. You know, I'm like, no TV. You know, we got a thing now. We started maybe 2 years ago where we don't go to bed with TV. You know, at first we started this thing where you cut like 30 minutes of Pepper Pig, and I was like, no, wait a minute, no TV at night.
Right.
Like, this is time where you night dream, daydream, and you close your eyes and go to sleep. And I got a different child from that. The child I got from that was completely different. And the way she wakes up in the morning, the mood she's in, it's like, oh, wow, this is interesting. So now I'm like, I'll fill up the whole day without TV if I could. Like literally, if it gets above 30 minutes, I'm like, well, what are we doing? You know what? Here, let's color. I'll give of myself to keep away from that. I'll say, you know what? Let's color together. You know? And so, long story short, lessons that you learn in the most basic form, I feel like right now they are really being, you know, really kind of like called upon in this pandemic. And everybody's realizing it. It's not that you know the right or wrong way to do it, but everybody's realizing, okay, all right, why do I want to play music? You know, some people are switching careers, and that's not a bad thing. Because you realize the value. It's like, if you know, like, it's a different thing. It's like this kind of creative space, 24/7. I mean, some people call it crazy. You know, some people call it like, you know, because it's a ride. So, yeah, Brandon.
Man, let me share a story with you. And I'm gonna have my student John here just confirm with a nod, because he was with me on stage when this happened, right? So when you talked about transcriptions, right? So John here does a lot of transcriptions. He transcribes a lot. He's one of my students. He's in my combo in the big band at the school. He transcribes a lot. He got a lot under his hand. I'm always telling him, listen, man, you check out my boy James. He studied with Gerald right now. You know our boy Gerald Watkins. So you know, I'm getting him developed, right? And I tell him about the Florida State Cats and all this. But the one thing I'm always yelling at him is about focus. And I'm yelling at him all the time about staying focused. And he's like, all right, professor. And it kind of sometimes goes in one and not the other. He does listen. But every once in a while, he'll get like, all right. And I told him, last year we did this combo concert. And I played bass with them. And right before we went out on stage, I said, guys, when you are professional, nothing will rattle you. You go in the moment and you stay in it. You gotta be focused from the moment your foot touches the stage to the moment you get off, and you completely off stage is when you go, whew, but you stay there. So we playing this concert. We're playing So What? I do this bass intro. Bruh, let me tell you, my D string popped in the middle of the solo. Just, I hit a Rodney Jordan. You remember when Rodney was playing, his bridge fell off it just, now, mind you, John is on stage. I got 3 of my other students on stage seeing this. And the audience is like, okay, he probably gonna put the bass down and go get another one. I said, oh, yeah, my bass popped. And then I just kept playing. And I played the whole song, the rest of that show, with 3 strings. And he's sitting there just like, and like, this man really he's playing. Do you know how hard it is to play So What without a D string? Like, that is extreme. Amina, that is extremely hard to do. But the one thing that Mr. Rodney Jordan had always taught us was, you need to learn your scales. You gotta practice. You gotta stay disciplined. I say, Rodney, why you always making me play scales? Because it's gonna be a day when you have to know how to play on them 2 strings. And that moment came. And what John noticed right there was, he said, okay, I think I'm starting to understand why Professor Robertson is always yelling at me about staying focused. Because I tell them, professionals, even in a distressed moment, they have learned how to discipline themselves under extreme circumstances, which separates them from everything else. So I'm glad that you talked about that. I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because a lot of young musicians they bypass that step. They do all these transcriptions, they listen to all these recordings, but then they forget the discipline. It's like, well, look at the time you've actually taken to learn this. That means you're learning your focus, your endurance, your mental cognitive thinking. Now you know how to think beyond what is in front of you versus what I'm telling you.
Yeah, the relationship.
Exactly.
That's where the focus really comes in handy. It's the relationship to what you're playing. When you understand that conversation, that's the deep level. You understand that. Nicholas Payton is somebody who I talk to all the time here. And Nick is like, man, I've only done like 3 or 4 transcriptions. Like he talks about transcriptions like they're nothing. But you know what he's a high level thinker at is the relationship to music.
Right.
I'm not trying to give you a cheat code because there's no cheat code, right?
Right.
You gotta live it or you gotta learn it. One or the other. I think you gotta do both. But Nick would always talk about this, but what Nick would always kind of show you is that the way he was hearing the music consistently, he was living it at a high level. So the pieces of information that he would learn would be so valuable to where he would listen to anyone else. He would be able to listen and take in how to process their approach in music. That's called graduation. There's a point in your career as a musician and your progress where you graduate to where you, not that you stop doing transcriptions, but you start to be able to hear the music and hear deeply what's taking place. And when you get to that space, that is the space in which you do the transcriptions and the focus, that kind of exercise or just that kind of routine so that you can get to that place of hearing the music on a really high level. I'm talking about a real high relationship level. And I mean, I've been on stage. Focus is something you deal with. I remember, I got a story. I'll tell the story and then we can move on. I was in Paris. I never forget this. I was in Paris playing, I think it was the Duc de Lombard. No, it was the Le Pete Le Journal, which was a weird club. I would never forget this tour. This was a weird tour. Sometimes booking agents put you on weird tours. And I was young. I was with Carmen Lundy, and I'm in Paris. And this place had, it was like, I'm not a fan of French food, but this place had really good French food. It had like some duck, and I don't even really eat duck, but it was like this kind of barbecue duck. It was an interesting thing, right? But I remember I was young at the time, so I had the duck. But then I remember this because I went and ate at Pizza Hut in Paris for the first time. It was hilarious. It was like the funniest thing. But the Pizza Hut there was actually really, it was like, damn, it was pretty. But anyway, which told me a lot of stories about Europe and like America. That was my whole start of like, wait a minute, what in the world are we doing? Anyway, sorry, I know I'm going on a tangent here.
No, go ahead.
Basically, I got on stage and Carmen, I never forget this night because I'm playing and I was at Florida State, Marcus Roberts, Leon Anderson, very traditional perspective of jazz. So swing is king, okay? And I never forget this moment because this changed my whole mindset on the music. Marcus would be on my behind about different concepts about swing, definition in the rise cymbal, articulation in the snare drum, like all these things. Leon would also be in a certain energy at times about like understanding vocabulary. And the way Leon would give it, he just said, keep playing, which he was right. Ultimately, Leon was right. It was the old man route. Like, it was like, just keep playing. Like, keep.
Yep.
Because what Leon didn't want to do is squash the creativity in my brain. Marcus was squashing it. Marcus was like, you need to swing. Like, no, this is how it needs to sound. It was super specific. And I got something out of that too. You can take the chicken and spit out the bones. What I got out of that is Marcus needed definition. He needed a level of clarity in my sound. Leon just wanted me to be free in the music so I can play something nobody else is playing. See what I'm saying? He wanted me to be like, yeah, like, go there, get to that thing,
Right, yeah.
That's how I felt from him as a teacher. So I had both sides. I get on stage. I'm in Paris. I'm still in college at Florida State. I'm playing. We're doing this tune. I got like Daryl Hall, Anthony Wanzer. These are like goats. Not goats, but like, they're like the Young Lions generation. They're very,
right.
And I'm this 19-year-old on stage. I'm playing. And we're doing like this. Boom, catch. And so I'm kind of like thinking Elvin, maybe a little Jack, kind of like vibe, right? Man. And I look at it nowadays, I think about this moment, the band was dealing. They were like, boom, boom, boom. I mean, they were dealing. And I was being super conservative because I was playing my exercises. All of my books, I was like, I was in the wheelhouse. I was doing what the right thing was to do for the moment.
Right.
woman turned around and she said, "Play the bleep drums." Like, and she basically cussed me out on stage. And to speak to focus, my focus was not in the right place. This is a relationship. This is what I'm talking about. My focus was completely in school, big time. And I remember Dell being like, "Yeah, come on, man, come on," because basically the band was firing. They dragging me. And I never forget that night. We played that night 3 nights at the same spot. And I remember coming back on stage and just being like, you know what? I'm going to go for what I know. And I remember Darryl telling me, he's like, "Man, how did you come into learning music? Like, did you come into learning music, like playing jazz, like playing like straight ahead?" He was like, "Man, have you checked out any other music?" And I'm like, "Well, of course, but we're playing jazz."
Right.
It was like the moment where I had all these different perspectives coming in, right? This shaped me, though, because I didn't lose those perspectives. What happened was it created my own sound and my identity where I said, okay, I'm going to bring aboard everything that I've learned and be authentic in the moment, And ever since that day, bro, I've never held back. Like, I literally go on people's gigs. When I go on somebody's gig that it's my first time, I literally, like, push the gas pedal on purpose. I'd rather you tell me to stop. That's the kind of confidence I try to approach the instrument with. It's like, okay, we playing this music. I hit the downbeat as hard as I feel like it needs to be hit. Like I go. You gotta free yourself in the music like that. That's what Charlie Parker was doing. That's what Miles was doing. That's what Art Taylor, what all these greats, Monk, they were freeing themselves in the music. They had done the homework though to understand that, you know what? Listen, I'm not afraid of the wrong answer. I like we want affirmation so much that we're afraid of the criticism. Yes, take it, because that's gonna help you. So if you do rush, cool. You know not to do that. That's how I look at it. Every gig it works because you get to the bandstand and the band leader's like, "Yeah, oh yeah," and they're actually, it's shock value. They're like, one time I was playing with McBride in Miami. Chris McBride, and I only played with him twice, maybe 2. It was like 3 gigs I played, but the second gig we played in Pompano Beach Jazz Festival. I never forget this. And so he was playing this bump fried pies, bump boom. He started swinging, and I was like, oof. And I remember that moment, and so I was kind of taken back. And so I like came in on beat 4. So like, so McBride said, and I was like, ooh, I came in on 4, and he was like, yeah. I was like, oh. It was a mistake, but these are like those interplay moments that happen where it's like, oh, so you gotta be in the music. Like, you gotta be in the moment. Like there's no mistakes when you're in it.
Bruh, I tell my students all the time, I play mind tricks on them cats, because I be like, listen, guys, y'all will be doing this stuff, right? And sometimes my drummer do something, my horn player do something, the piano player play. And I'm like, man, hold up. He's like, "Professor, it ain't working." Figure it out. That's the fun part. That's the fun part right there. I want to get lost in the music so I can figure out my way to get back on the track. Shoot, I tell them all the time, you know how many gigs I've played with drummers or piano players that are like, them cats in Pluto. I'm on Earth, they are in Pluto, but somehow we need to meet at Mars or Jupiter. We need to meet in the middle ground and then come on back.
If we're really checking out the music, and let me tell you something, I'll tell anybody, if you're checking whatever you're checking out, do the research on the context. Learn about the musicians, their personalities. There's so much information out here about these people. Learn about how they were as people. Because I'm going to tell you, if you peep game, that's a part of the music. Like, you actually having an edge to your playing that is dragging the bandstand is a part of the music. That energy of, I call it that spine, that like edge. That's a part of the music. That's what, no offense, this is why they was doing drugs, man. Like, you got to pay attention. Kid friendly, I hope we all understand. But I'm not saying that you should.
Nah, we got it.
Not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, man, come on, these people were loading up. They were loading up before they played the music. And we listening to it, putting science to it. No. They were like, bruh, very interesting individuals.
Right.
And you got to remember that. Like, they had personality. They like, monk? Think about meeting a monk in modern day time. Could you imagine? Have you ever talked to like a Jason Moran? Like had like a long 10-minute conversation with somebody like that kind of mental edginess. Like there's a creative search, and granted, I personally feel like there's a structure here that we have to find in modern day living of any kind of level of morality, I think. But if you want to live on the wild side musicians, most of them are killing. No offense to being on the safe side, but bruh, I know some of the craziest musicians. You need a little bit. Like, you gotta have reckless. And when I say crazy, let me say this in a better way. You need to have some freedom to your approach.
Mm-hmm.
Not be afraid. I'll say that. You should not be afraid. And I think when we understand that, that's what makes bandstands pop. When everybody's like that, ooh, stuff happens, and it's like, oh, well, I did not expect that. It's just moving, you know.
Yeah.
So, and this goes in all art situations too, man. I'm not even just talking about jazz. Like, bro, every time even Snarky Puppy, like touring with them, bro, these guys are freaking. Oh, every night, music is way complicated, and they making it even more complicated. They keep pushing nightly, you know. So yeah.
Man, yo, Jamison, I gotta say, man, because we getting towards the end, and I want to say everything you just said is not only valuable and it's not only inspiring, but it's so much truth, and it's honesty, you know, because this music is honest. And as you spoke about how our fellow pioneers, our previous pioneers before us, how they had this honesty and freedom in their music, which made them separate themselves from the other musicians in their time. But what I want to leave is one last thing. I gotta ask this because I do know that we have some musicians on the call here. Man, what are some good, just quick practice tips that you can offer? Like how you go about practicing, like when you sitting at the kit, or when you're preparing to sing, for instance, or when you are behind the board, because that's a different practice as well, being behind the board and sonically using your ears as your instrument. So what are some things that you can share with some of the folks here on the call?
The first thing is going to be, we have some questions. Jamison, what was the point in his life that he finally made it? Play up. Sorry, my bad. Looking at the questions, guys. Okay, the first thing is going to be non-musical. Just sit down somewhere 15 minutes a day and don't do nothing. Like, the first thing I'm going to say is just sit down. And when I say sit down, I mean sit down. Don't pick up a phone. Don't watch a television show. Daydream. Like, let your mind repair itself, period. Because sometimes we have the answers to our questions, guys. But guys and girls, hey, Amina. We have the answers to our questions. We have the answers to our deficiencies musically, but we just don't have enough time to hear it. We don't
Facts.
think. Is this generation we in? We just need to sit down 15 minutes, watch the clock, just daydream. Think about what's going to happen is your mind's going to start to talk. You're going to start to just hear stuff. And it's going to calm you down, and it's going to give you what I call a clarity and approach to what your next move is going to be. I say do it every day. Every day. 15 minutes. It's easier if you do it in the morning, but if you do it in the evening time, it works, bro. It's going to and I say repair your mind for a reason, y'all, because you're taking so much information. Bro, what? In one day, it's like, boom. And the paradiddle exercise that you just figured out, you can't even remember it. You can't even, what was that? Like, there's an omen. I mean, for real, it's like crazy, man. It's like, it's very difficult to achieve this level of mastery if you don't have the brain to think it out, you know, and to kind of like process it. So that's first. The second thing is shorter increments of practicing. Those long 2 and 3 hour practice sessions, if you can't focus, chill that out. That is wasting your time. 100. All you doing is just, it's not working. Trust me. Like it's 20 minutes. Cut the clock on. We don't even know sometimes how long 10 or 20 minutes is. We don't know. Because we noodle out of way. Before you know it, you was on the joint for an hour and you only spent 15 productive minutes. Remember that. Take breaks. Yeah. Come back to it. Like, you got to be deliberate about practice. It's like a gym. It's like when you take I went to the gym this morning and I rode my bike to the gym. I got to the gym and I did a set. And most times I put like myself on the timer, like 15-minute increments, like 15 seconds in between. Like that kind of deliberate approach is what you should be doing and practicing. And so you have the mental side of things, but then when it comes to building the muscles of the instruments, right, of the actual instrument and your ability, that's something that you need to build in a really strategic regimen, The third thing is going to be listen to music. I'm going to say this again. Listen. Me and Amina, I love Amina. Me, first time I met Amina, we talked for records outside. I don't know if it's the first time I met her, but she first came, I don't know, we were in New Orleans somewhere. This is when we were all playing gigs and the city was booming. And we talked about albums. And I remember her going from talking about some Mingus records to talking about like some freaking 70s George Duke. Or like, we just started traveling. When you listen to music, you gain confidence about how to approach musical situations. Mm-hmm. Remember that. When you listen to music, you gain confidence. That level of insecurity that you have in musical situations, you gain confidence if you are listening and you have something to relate to, like understanding what it felt like to get into some monk or to get into Mingus energy. Or what does it feel like to get into more of a modern Paul Wertico vibe? Chick, Bill Evans, Connie Kay, the modern jazz quintet. What is that? Like, what? That's a level of sophistication that a lot of young musicians need in their playing, but nobody knows. Nobody checks that stuff out. See, like, it's a level of approach, placement, orchestration, big. Rhythm section players, huge. Horn players, tone, like rhythm. Basic concepts that the masters of the music were channeling. Sonny Rollins on a ballad, Ben Webster on a ballad, Coleman Hawkins on a ballad, like Eddie Lockjaw Davis on a blues, rhythm. Like there's basic elements that we overlook because that's why that 15 minutes is important, because you overlook it. You don't even get a chance for it to talk to you. It's just like, oh, that's dope.
Yep, that's true, man. That's very true. You gotta, yeah.
Go ahead. You got it.
No, I was saying, man, no, that's all. That's not, yeah, that's exactly. And I wanted to ask that question because I do get asked that a lot by students. Just, Professor, how do you practice? And I tell them, man, I take about 20, 30 minutes because that's really all the time I have. So I deliberately am working on strategic things. I call it areas of struggle. I only work on things that I'm struggling with. I'm not trying to sit there and play things I can already do because that's just muscle memory. I need to work on things that I can't do so I can get to that. You know what I'm saying? And building up endurance, and stamina. So, man, thank you for sharing that, man. We got some questions, and Steve, I'm gonna pass it over to you. That way, if you want to go ahead and wrap it up and conclude, and I know they had some questions in there. So, thank you, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no, this has been really wonderful. Thank you to the both of you. And there are a few questions here I'd love to throw at each of you. The first one's from John. He said he wanted to ask Jamison, what was that point in Jamison's life when he felt like he finally made it as an artist? That's the first component of this question. The second is he also wanted to ask how it is to play and just be around drummers like Larnell Lewis and Sput and his experience playing with Snarky Puppy.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, bro. What's up, John? How you doing, man? I still have good days and bad days when it comes to my relevancy as an artist. That's something you'll learn. Some days you feel like you're climbing the mountain. Some days you feel like you got a long way to go. Some days you feel like you made it. That's a part of it. You got to manage those emotions. That's that crazy stuff that people talk about with being a creative. Like, the freer you get in it, You get days, you get lows and highs, and you gotta learn how to handle that. You gotta embrace that. Don't be scared of it. It weakens when you embrace it. Remember that. And the older you get, you start to get more level of clarity of how to deal with your own emotions, because you got to feel those things, bro. That comes out in the music, you know. I don't believe in telling you, oh no, you're not there, or I've made it. If you believe any one of those, it's gonna put you at a disadvantage. What you got to do is deal with the feelings and then keep going. Don't stop. Deal with the feelings. Get back in the room. Get back practicing. Go play the gig. Do it again. Like, it's just that simple. Like, you know, this music, and any level of creativity is not made for patty cake. No. There's no. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. It's like, no, come on. It's a long journey. And you may be a late bloomer. Guess what? Some people literally don't tour to that, bro. I've seen, oh my God. This is a story, but I'm not going to go here. Sput, Larnell, these guys. So let me tell you what's funny. This was a moment for me when I always knew Sput, but when I met Sput and Larnell, they already knew about me. See, this is where we have a really skewed perspective. Social media really puts us in a bad spot because we see what we are through the lens of other people. I'm going to say that again. What we are through the lens of other people. That it doesn't work that way. And the only reason I'm bringing up about Sput, because these guys are my friend. We got group chats. Like, I know these guys, like, personally. Like, we're close. And the way they talk, we all talk about these same conversations. There's like a real relationship that we have, you know? And when I say they knew about me, it wasn't like a thing like fans, but it was like there was like a genuine respect. And sometimes you don't see that. I was already climbing the ladder in my career when I met them. Like, think about it. Sput, the original drummer for Snarky Puppy, right? Larnell comes in, right? You got JT, who also plays. Imagine another drummer coming into that fold. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you really think about it, it actually makes sense. It's like, oh, like, and we're brothers, man. Like, I mean, there's a real relationship, and we talk music, and you know, everybody got their own projects and different concepts. And being in a band like Snarky Puppy is one of the most humble units of people I've ever been around. That's why it sound like that. These cats, like, it's real, and they know the music at a high clip, you know. And the collective is growing. It's so rich. You know what I mean? So hopefully that answers your question, bro. Just think about it that way sometimes, because that edge can build a vibe on you. But no, it's really a beautiful thing. It's a brotherhood, you know? So.
No, good. That's great. Thank you, Jamison. Just a couple others. Hopefully we could sneak these in before we conclude. Motivation from Joshua. What keeps you motivated to practice and refine, particularly in this time, I guess, when shows are not as frequent because of the pandemic?
Vision. Tough word, right? Especially because it changes all the time, right? But I think you have to go back to your real reason. And there's something that I kind of go by it. My granddaddy said this, but it's like, write the vision, make it plain, right? But I'm gonna be honest. I think there should be a more methodical process to the creativity process, and the methodical process needs to be the process in which you actually sit down and really deal with what you really want to do with the music, right? Because once you figure that out, then your daily habits will reflect what you say out of your mouth and what you say you want to do. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, it cannot reflect. And you're just going to have to feel that emotion of not really measuring up to what you said you wanted to do. You know what I mean? So I think the first thing is ask yourself, what is the vision for my career? Create a brand promise. Create like a mission statement. Create like a level of clarity about what you want to do. Mine is my working one. I'll say working because it changes. So don't feel like it got to be like this big. Don't do that. But have an idea. Mine is to engage and regenerate every soul with joy. One rhythm, one song, one audience at a time. That's encompassing everything that I want to do musically, right? and that's talking about how the feeling I want to deal with. I'm dealing with like all levels of what I want to do through the music. Like take some time to just like encompass everything about you and put it out. Because when you do that, these moments will keep pushing you. The low moments, it'll keep put it on a big old whiteboard. I got one over here on my wall. You can't see it, but it's a big old whiteboard. And bro, literally, I come in here some days, like you got to keep seeing it because day by day it gets hard, bro. You're not going to achieve more. You're not going to deal with 2022 right now. So you got to be able to see it so you can remember what it is and then do what that day calls for. It's a builder. It's like, I'm trying to be able to play in all 12 keys. You know what? I need to be able to I need to improvise and Donna Lee in all 12 keys. Like I'm thinking tangible. Don't even think tangible. This is what I need to do by the end of the year. That means what am I doing today to achieve that goal? Like that kind of, you know what I mean? Like that kind of fervor, that kind of like clarity. That's what you need to match the crazy. You know, that equals out to some kind of passion, but it's supposed to match. It's supposed to be both. I think so. Anyway.
No, that's a great mission too. I love that. I love the sound of that and the feel of it. One more question here, and then we'll kind of do some closing remarks from Nigel. He was interested in touring life while still being in school. So what was that like?
Bro, Nigel, I'm behind on Nigel. See, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to call Nigel after this. I'm gonna have to give him a call because we've been told to get up, but my lifestyle is moving at the moment. But don't worry, my schedule is gonna get better in 2021. I'm getting really good at it. Minding this. But anyway, yeah, Nigel, it's good to see you, bro. It was hard, bro. I lost a lot of discipline during that time. No lie. I lost a lot. I know. This is why going to school was not really what the greats did. And it's a hard conversation, but it's the truth. A lot of them did not enroll in a four-year university. Christian McBride himself, a lot of these cats did not complete. Gregory Hutchinson, they did not get the degree. Maybe honorary, but they didn't. This is why I feel like the masters can only show you but so much. In a modern generation, we have to compile the blueprint, the soul of the modern music. And see, this is where the innovation comes in. And because we have to compile and really regenerate this soul of the modern music, we got to take things and then include perspectives. I'm not telling you don't go to school. I'm not telling you that you should go to school. But what I'm telling you is keep in mind how people achieved those goals. When I say my discipline slipped, my level of lifestyle slipped when I started doing both because I couldn't turn in every grade. It was just too much. I was on a high. I'm touring the world. And you want me to turn in a transcription assignment and I'm in Paris. It's hard. And I'm being very transparent with you. I didn't do it, right? And it was grad school. Doing graduate comps. My graduate comps pulled the life out of me. Let me tell you something. Because I was on the road and I had to do these graduate comps. But that was the only thing that I actually had to do to graduate. And I'm not saying I had to know other lessons, but those were really important. Like they were unmovable. If I did not do them, I would not graduate from grad school. So there's a discipline that you have to kick in and just being real, that's the balance of the new musician. So while you may have the edge of being creative and touring the world, what you're going to have to do different from what Charlie Parker and John Coltrane had to do is you're going to have to do both. And that's a goal in itself. For you to be, it's like being an athlete and being a college athlete. You know, some guys choose to just go straight to the league. Some guys choose, but then some Myron Roll, go nose, you know what I'm saying? Doctor and play ball. Like, you know, I'm not saying you got to be an overachiever, but just think about the modern blueprint, bro, of where we are now in our time and what you need to kind of accumulate. You know, maybe school is not it, but maybe you start a business. Maybe you start like, you know, like you gotta like, you know, like that's where the vision thing kind of comes in mind. And you say, okay, you know what? I want to tour. Yeah. I want to go to school. Yeah, you can do both. Sure. Understand what that comes with. Yep. Hopefully that helps.
No, that was a great answer. I just can't thank Brandon and Jamison enough for spending this time with us. It really inspiring, going the extra mile this morning. We're a little bit over an hour now, and it just means the world to us. So on behalf of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, Brandon Robertson, Jamison Ross, thanks for being part of the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. And I want to encourage everybody, you know, check out the education and outreach section at clearwaterjazz.com. Jamison talked about taking the time to really learn about some of these personalities, legends of this music. And when you do, notice how it comes back and influence you and impacts your journey. There's a lot of great stuff within the Young Lions sessions, but also the Stop Time series with Frank Williams has its own page. It starts with the Civil War era influences and goes through modern day comprehensive audio and visual history of jazz. You can also look at it and listen to it on the podcast. And these are little nuggets told in Frank's one-of-a-kind style, anywhere from 7 minutes to 20 minutes, and he will take a deep dive into the human being. And then you can take it further with some deeper dives as part of the Young Lions sessions, the What I Love About series. And I just think if you spend the time, you're going to really get a lot out of it. So really appreciate Jamison for hitting that point home pretty hard today. And keep being creative, everybody out there. Keep playing. Keep working at your vision and your dreams. And Jamison, Brandon, this has been awesome. I hope to see you both back with us. And I know Brandon's going to be, but maybe we can twist Jamison's arm again in the future and have him back with us for this helping to build this wonderful treasure of information free for all students of all ages. So again, on behalf of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, thank you both so much.
Oh, thank you. And I want to say two last points. First, everybody who's going to watch this later, for those who are right now, please, I'm going to promote the heck out of my man's album, All for One. Please get that record. And the first one, Jamison, but his second record, that's a vibe and a half on its own. My wife and my daughter loves that record. Like, that's the only, they've always told, like, your friend Jamison, I like his sing. See, that's jazz. I like that. Cause it's like it's the other stuff that confuses them, and my wife is like, I can't follow the other, but his is so. Yeah, she's like, it's so passionate, I can fit. I'm like, okay, I get that. That's why he's here. That's why he's. I get that. But I want everybody who's watching this, please go support that record. All of our friends from college is on that record. Mikael, the record that he just dropped. The one that you produced.
Michael
Kilgore, yes.
One that got the Grammy nomination.
Please, yes.
For the state as well. And he's living in New York now. So, yeah, Michael, yeah, man. It's Florida State, go Noles. Listen.
Yeah, go Noles. But thank you, Steve, for having us. Everyone, thank y'all again for joining us. And Jamison, it was a pleasure. And Steve, we got to keep our Floridians back home. He's a Florida boy, always going to be Duval 904. You know how they do. So anytime we can get Duval, Jacksonville Cats here, man, it's all love. Always love.
all good. Let's do it. All right, everybody. For those of you participating today, thanks for hanging with us, and everyone watching and listening in the future. Hope you're finding good value in all these resources. We're having a lot of fun producing it. So take care, everybody.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one.